Hey, everybody. Welcome back from Thanksgiving to the stream. I hope everybody had a fan-freaking-tastic long weekend. I'm still big on the screen from recording some things earlier. There we go. That's a little bit fixed. We are slowly getting back into everything on a Monday morning. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I have a food coma still. I was so relieved to have a couple of days to turn everything off, not worry so much about what was going on in the news or constantly need to be scrolling through social media. I only posted once the entire Tuesday through Sunday block there. It was great. And I feel like I had a little mini sabbatical from all of the crazy things glued to the screen. But now I'm back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. I probably should have done more last week. I don't know if you guys are feeling that way about the Thanksgiving holiday, but more than anything, I hope you all had a great opportunity to connect with your family and your friends and your loved ones and just be all together. That's what Thanksgiving is all about, and it's a very special time for us to continue to commemorate and respect and value those who love us and those who we love, and to remind everyone else that we are grateful for them as well. We are back, though, for a big, exciting week in my life and here on the stream, so I'm going to start with just a couple of updates before we jump into today's story. Trust me, stick around. It is a really good one, and you guys are going to want to know all of the details. In case you missed it, there were some really massive protests happening last week in Dublin, Ireland, after an immigrant stabbed 3 children, and lots of crazy stuff going on over there. As a result, the Prime Minister of Ireland has announced that they are going to take severe steps from a legal perspective to criminalize hate speech, especially in the digital age. If you possess hate speech on your phone or on your computer, you will be prosecuted, and you might even receive some really insane punishment from the government. Conor McGregor, interestingly, is one of the first people that they are choosing to investigate over this. So we're going to be unpacking all of that on the stream. But first and foremost, I have a couple of updates for you guys related to this week because it's a bit of a unique week for me. Don't forget, if you haven't already said hello to us, wow, I can't even speak. The woman was too stunned to speak. That's a Monday. If you haven't already said hello to us over in our live chat, make sure that you guys are doing that. And don't forget to hit the like button on this episode. That might look like a little thumbs up or a heart. And most importantly, smash that follow or subscribe button wherever you guys are watching to help us continue to grow our community across the interwebs. If you've been paying attention in the last couple of weeks, you probably remember that I told you guys a few weeks ago I was taking a really big trip this week. So on Wednesday, I am flying first to Dallas, and then I am taking a nonstop 15-and-a-half-hour flight from Dallas to Auckland, New Zealand on Wednesday, because this upcoming weekend I am speaking as one of the very few speakers that was selected to give an address at New Zealand's March for Life in Wellington in New Zealand, their capital. I am so unbelievably excited about this opportunity. This will be my 3rd country's March for Life in the calendar year 2023 that I've either attended or spoken at. I did a lot of work with Students for Life as the MC of their conference surrounding the America March for Life in January. I then went to Canada, was it May? The spring, to give a speech to their youth organization associated with the Canadian March for Life. And now I am headed all the way across the globe to the other side of the globe, passing the international date line to New Zealand this week to give a speech as one of their keynote speakers at the New Zealand March for Life on Saturday, December 2nd. So, all of that to be said, I have kind of a crazy week and a half. Obviously, we wouldn't go all that way and not make a fun trip out of it because I have no idea when or if I ever may return to New Zealand. So I'm going to be staying there from November 29th to December 11th. Because of the international dateline crazy stuff, I actually just miss all of Thursday, November 30th. It completely dissipates into the ethos. It just poof goes into thin air. So I will be there for about 10 days and then I come back on Monday the 11th. I am so excited to experience a new culture and meet new people and just continue to tell the truth specifically about the pro-life movement all over the world. It is a huge honor and I'm so unbelievably grateful to the New Zealand March for Life organization for inviting me to come out there. But because of that, I will be 20 hours ahead of you guys in all of the scheduling for this upcoming couple of days. So we are going to have some really spectacular guest hosts on the stream, starting on Thursday, going all the way through Monday, December 11th. I will be not streaming. I will be taking the time to explore a new country and working really hard with the March for Life down there in New Zealand. But I can promise you the stream is still going to be happening. We have several really exciting guest hosts, including your friend Joe Bob, who comes on the the stream quite often. Our friend Chrissy Clark from the Daily Caller will be joining us, as well as one of our guest hosts, and some other fun surprises up our sleeve. So get excited for that. But just to totally clarify and make sure everybody's aware, starting Thursday, going through Monday, December 11th, I will not be the person on the stream. There will be other people. So don't be confused. It is still our stream. It is still our community, but we're going to have some really fun guest hosts in the process. Does that make sense to everyone? I think it does. Let's say hi to some people in the chat and then jump right on to this story. Starting over on YouTube, G-Fact is kicking us off. Hey, G-Fact, so glad you're here. Dutch Canadian, Mighty Sarlacc, and Unforeseen Outdoors are joining us. This is Unforeseen Outdoors' first time watching us truly live, so welcome, welcome. Los Ravosa is here. Brenda is watching. We've got Nicholas watching. It's 11 degrees Fahrenheit in Minnesota. It is 85 here in Miami, so I would actually rather take the 11 degrees at this point. I kind of miss winter. We've got Hamed joining us and Dutch Canadian watching from the Netherlands. John Best, Sarah Jameson, Troy HT, and Oganiasis is kicking things off for us over on our Rumble chat. We've got Prometheus, Bob, and Nitty Witty joining us on Getter, and the Locals gang out in full force today on Locals. Rock Magic Def, Sabina, Alex, Crazy Cat Lady, Tito, Daniel, Maynard, and more. You guys are thebomb.com. I love you all so very much, but I'll tell you what I don't love so much today. Everything that is going on in Ireland. I don't know if you guys paid much attention to this story over the last week or so. If you were like me and you weren't paying a whole lot of attention to everything going on related to the news, I actually didn't get all of the logistics of this story until I came back yesterday. But I did a whole deep dive yesterday into everything that happened in Ireland. So we'll start at the 30,000 foot level of what the heck is going on in their country and then what they're trying to do moving forward. But basically, as I mentioned, the country of Ireland is seeking to officially, legally criminalize whatever the government is calling hate speech at any given particular time, specifically what their prime minister is deeming as hate speech, in response to some really crazy, wild protests that were specifically anti-immigration protests that happened in central Dublin last week. So let's start at the 30,000 foot level and then just work our way towards the logistics and the specific nuances of this story. It's crazy, and I do think laws like this are going to become more and more and more normalized and probably are coming to your own backyard, whether you're watching somewhere in Europe, in Canada, or even here in America. There are already hate speech laws on the books in many of these countries, but this specific story is, I think, where we are going with the rise of the conversation about free speech continuing to exist more and more and more in the digital space. We're going to start with the Associated Press. They did a great job covering some of this. I usually am not their favorite reader of choice per se, but I do think they did a great job covering just the 30,000 foot level of this story. The headline is Ireland's Prime Minister condemns anti-immigrant protesters who rampaged through central Dublin. So to be abundantly clear, these are protesters who are protesting the country's very liberal, very loosely enforced immigration program in Ireland because an immigrant, I don't know officially if this person was a legal or illegal immigrant into Ireland, last week stabbed 3 people that wounded a woman and 2 other, actually it was 4 people, stabbed 4 people, wounded a woman, 2 other children, and a 5-year-old girl who was very seriously injured by this stabbing. They put together this video, and I'm not going to play any of the music or background noise associated with it, but this is just to give you a picture of what these protests actually looked like in Ireland last week. They set a bunch of buses on fire. It kind of looked like the mostly peaceful protests of the Black Lives Matter Summer of Rage all across the United States in 2020. Very similar imagery here for me. More than 400 officers were deployed to contain the unrest. They called the protesters a small group of thugs. Imagine if our government ever used that language. A number of police vehicles and a tram were damaged, and a lot of shop windows were smashed by protesters. There was one picture of a Foot Locker that I saw that was completely destroyed. Obviously, lots and lots of unrest in the whole situation in the city. A man in his 50s was a person of interest in their investigation of the attack, which I found super interesting. But that's just the imagery of what these protests actually looked like. So pretty intense protests that certainly would warrant a response from the government. But rather than responding to the protesters' qualms, which were the immigration policies of the country of Ireland. And should they have protested like this? No, I never support violent protests like this ever. But they were protesting specifically about the immigration stance of the country, which obviously is heating up all over the world in the wake of the Israel-Hamas war and everything that we're talking about from a global immigration standpoint in the last few weeks. Instead, the government has decided to respond by criminalizing hate speech online. What that has much to do with destroying a Foot Locker and stabbing 3 little children and lighting a city bus on fire, I don't really know, but this is how they've decided to respond. So again, the Associated Press reported on this. They did a really great job. Ireland's Prime Minister on Friday condemned anti-immigrant protesters who rampaged through central Dublin after 3 young children were stabbed, saying the rioters simply wanted to cause chaos, not protect the country's way of life. Police made a number of further arrests on Friday evening as they mounted a significant security operation in Dublin to ensure that there was no repeat of Thursday's disorder. A number of people were taken away in police vans following sporadic altercations. 34 people were arrested after Thursday night's rioting, when up to 500 people looted shops, set fire to vehicles, and threw rocks at crowd control officers equipped with helmets and shields. The violence began after rumors circulated that a foreign national was responsible for an attack outside of a Dublin school on Thursday afternoon. To be very clear, the authorities have not disclosed yet or confirmed yet the stabber's identity or nationality, but the news has already spread that this person allegedly was an immigrant and was specifically seeking to disrupt Western culture in part of what they were doing here. That's what the news began reporting. Obviously, the authorities have not yet confirmed that, but I do think that's interesting. Prime Minister of Ireland said that Ireland's capital had endured 2 attacks, one on innocent children and one on our society and the rule of law. So the person stabbing 3 innocent children isn't attacking society and the rule of law. Interesting. These criminals did not do what they did because they love Ireland. They did not do what they did because they want to protect Irish people. They did not do it out of any sense of patriotism, however warped. They did so because they're filled with hate. They love violence. They love chaos, and they love causing pain to others, said the Prime Minister of Ireland. Again, the reason for all of this unrest specifically circulated around the stabbing of children that happened in Dublin. A few days prior, a 5-year-old girl was in critical condition at the hospital, and a teacher's aide was also in serious condition. This attack, the stabbing, happened right outside of an elementary school in Dublin. A 6-year-old girl continues to receive treatment for less serious injuries, and another child was discharged overnight. The alleged assailant remains hospitalized in serious condition. Now, immediately, of course, this is how the government wants to respond. It's not any sort of condemnation of violent crime from immigrants that happen to come to this country, regardless of how you feel about immigration. It's not any sort of condemnation about people legitimately attacking Western civilization and Western culture. The media and the government of Ireland specifically have decided to turn this and every other story into a condemnation of far-right ideology and alleged white supremacy and people who are so xenophobic that they could never, ever, ever take in asylum seekers to their country. So listen to how the Associated Press is reporting on this, because this is, I think, what we can expect with all reporting on any subject remotely related to immigration, even if the roles might seem to be reversed in the actual unfolding of events. This is how the media is going to continue to cover this. Thursday's unrest came amid rising tensions over immigration in Ireland that mirror trends in other parts of Europe. Earlier this year, people carrying signs reading "Ireland is full" demonstrated in Dublin, relatable, and protesters blockaded a hotel housing asylum seekers on the West Coast. An analysis of more than 13 million social media posts, so they're admitting that they're analyzing your posts on social media, by the way, over the past 3 years found that right-wing groups were increasingly using platforms such as X, formerly known as Twitter, to stir up opposition to immigration. Recent activity has characterized the refugees and asylum seekers as an existential threat to Ireland, according to a report from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, a London-based group that seeks to combat extremism. But we're not interested in combating the extremism that leads someone to stab 3 young children, that extremism we're totally fine with. The only extremism that people are interested in combating from governments in Western civilization is the extremism that would take to Twitter and say, that was bad that you stabbed 3 young kids. I don't know, just a thought. Maybe I'm reaching too much here, but what is the real extremism in society? I would like to ask for the zillionth time. Ireland received more than 141,000 immigrants in the last 12 months through April, the highest total since 2007, the latest government statistics show. The influx of migrants drove an 11.7% increase in Ireland's population, contributing to a steady increase in housing prices. When he was questioned about anti-immigration tensions earlier this year, the Prime Minister of Ireland told the Parliament that there was always a place for a peaceful protest, but violence, intimidation, and racism were never legitimate. I think when it comes to this matter, we should never lose sight of the bigger picture. We are facing a major refugee crisis, not just here in Ireland, but across all of Europe. And that was said to the Irish Parliament in May. So all of this happens last week. This immigrant decides, I'm going to go and stab 3 little children outside of their school and one of their teacher's aide and put them in the hospital, attempt to kill them, because that's not extremism. That's just my lifestyle as an immigrant to your country. People become incredibly outraged and protest to a degree that I don't think is very reasonable in a morally coded society. I don't think you should be destroying businesses. I don't think you should be lighting buses on fire. It looks a whole lot like the mostly peaceful protests of Black Lives Matter in America in 2020, the footage that I'm seeing from Dublin. But again, I don't live in Dublin. I don't know the full extent of the damages. If anybody is watching from Ireland and you want to tune in the chat and just let us know like what actually happened, please let us know. From what I can tell with this footage, it went to a degree that was no longer acceptable as an actually peaceful protest. However, people start protesting because they're very, very frustrated with the state of affairs from the last several years, like everyone in Western civilization is very, very frustrated with the state of affairs in the last several years, where we can't afford to live in our cities anymore because all of the housing is being given away to people who are not citizens of our country, and then we have to pay out the frickin' wazoo, if that's even possible, to afford housing for ourselves. Same thing with the job market. Violent crime is skyrocketing in most major cities all over Western culture, in Canada, in the UK, in Ireland, in all of Europe, and in America as well, minus Miami, by the way. Miami is one of the only major cities where violent crime is dramatically decreasing, which I find quite interesting. I learned that when I moved here. But the response from the government isn't, our own people are rioting against us and they're all complaining about our immigration policy. Maybe we should do something about that. Maybe we should listen to the people who elected us into this position of political power and figure out how we should best serve the people of our country. No, to the contrary, the response instead was to crack down on hate speech, to create new laws in the country of Ireland to make it a criminal offense in their country to possess any hate speech on your phone or on your computer. And don't just take my word for it. The actual Prime Minister of Ireland said this in a press conference in response to the not so peaceful protests that were happening in Dublin. End Wokeness put this out. It's a great account on Twitter, by the way. I don't really recommend that you guys go on Twitter very much if you don't want your soul to become decrepit and slowly wither away in front of you. But if you do have to go on Twitter to find news or find information, End Wokeness is a really great account. Don't tell Nikki Haley that, though, because, they're anonymous and we don't want that. They tweeted, Ireland's Prime Minister vows to crack down on free speech in response to the outrage over a migrant stabbing attack. CJ Bill 22 will make it a criminal offense in Ireland to even possess any hate speech on your phone or computer. Watch this.
We're going to make sure that we make those changes to our laws in the next couple of weeks to allow the Gardaí to use that evidence and go through that evidence and identify the people who are involved in these actions, and we are going to get them. In addition to that, I think it's now very obvious to anyone who might have doubted it that our incitement hatred legislation is just not up to date. It's not up to date.
So our legislation is not up to date. We are going to do everything in our power in the next few weeks. a matter of imminent urgency to criminalize hate speech and update our legal code to avoid extremism. But there's no urgency to update the legal code to avoid the extremism of stabbing people. There's no updates in imminent time frames to update the legal code to see why this is even happening in the first place with mass immigration to your country. Nope, just hate speech on your phone.
For the social media age, and we need that legislation through, and we need it through within a matter of weeks, because it's not just the platforms who have a responsibility here, and they do. There's also the individuals who post messages and images online.
So did you hear that? That's a new turning point in the West's legal code. It is not just the platforms that have a responsibility to limit hate speech from being on their platform at all, which they do, according to Ireland's Prime Minister. No, it's also the individual who is allegedly posting whatever the government wants to deem as hate speech that deserves to pay the price for that post as well. In other words, you will think, you will say, you will post, you will share, you will save content, ideologies, values, beliefs that we deem to be appropriate, that we deem to be correct, that we deem to be nice and loving and accepting and non-hateful. And if you remotely violate that, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
That stir up hatred and violence, and we need to be able to use laws to go after them individually as well. We're going to make sure
we need to be able to use laws to go after them individually as well. Whoa. So they're admitting the quiet part out loud, at the very least, that they're actually interested in prosecuting you as an individual for failing to agree with a postmodern worldview, for failing to believe that we should have mass immigration, that we should not have national identity, that it's totally kosher if somebody comes and stabs 3 children outside of an elementary school. That shouldn't outrage you. And if it does, you're a racist, violent, hateful xenophobe. And you are a bigot who deserves to, I don't know, maybe go to jail, go to prison because of the things that you have posted or reshared or seen on the internet. I have a zillion questions for how this is actually going to be implemented or regulated in Ireland. It has not yet, at the beginning of this conversation, as I know it. If anybody's watching from Ireland, please let me know. But generally speaking, I don't think this has actually gone into effect quite yet. This press conference was just a few days ago. This is all kind of brand new information that's coming out. But it mirrors a lot of the same rhetoric that I am seeing in the UK. It's mirroring a lot of the same rhetoric that I'm seeing in the rest of Europe. I'm seeing this conversation happening in Canada, and I certainly am seeing people call for a legal regulation of hate speech here in the United States of America as well. Quite regularly, we see calls to rewrite our First Amendment to the Constitution that guarantees our right to freedom of expression and free speech. Some people say we shouldn't even have a First Amendment to begin with because hate speech should be illegal. In the UK, they are arresting people for silently praying, not even speaking. There is no speech involved, but for silently praying outside of abortion facilities because that's constituted as hate speech under new laws in the United Kingdom. So this is becoming more and more and more normalized, and the more prime ministers or legislators or members of parliament that I'm seeing from all over the world call attention to this in press conferences like the one that we just watched, I think laws like this are only going to become more and more and more common when it comes to the new legislation that's introduced all throughout the Western world. The reality is we really don't have freedom of speech anymore. We can pretend that we do. We can act like we do. We can say that, oh, it's enshrined in our constitutional rights. It's not pretty much everywhere other than the United States, by the way. Most of these other countries do not have a constitutional or legal right to free speech. But the truth is, if the government can deem you possess hate speech content on your phone or on your computer, and you should receive prisoner punishment for that or have to pay a massive fine to the government, even the idea that that would be allowed in a free society means that we don't have freedom of speech. Period. Full stop. We are past the point of no return. The fact that this is even a normalized conversation at all tells me everything I need to know about where the world is moving forward from here. So again, I have a zillion questions about how this is actually going to be implemented. How do they even deem that you possess hate speech on your phone? Is that something you posted? Is that something you shared to your account? Is that something you've saved on a particular social media platform? Like if I saved a TikTok video that was a comedic video making fun of somebody, does that mean that I have possession of hate speech on my phone? I don't know. And I think this is a whole new gray area of the law that is completely dystopian, completely authoritarian, and quite literally looks like George Orwell's 1984. Like this looks like the Ministry of Love and the Ministry of Truth warping everything that we experience, we say, we interact with, and more. There was an article I found that's trying to explain how this new hate speech law, or laws plural, might be instituted. So let's read through this together and see if we can piece any more information together. On Friday, again, the Prime Minister of Ireland made a commitment in that press conference we just watched to take strong actions against individuals with what they're deeming to have racist views. Well, what's a racist view? Who gets to determine or define what a racist view is? Because I get called a racist every 5 freaking minutes for just existing as a white person. Sleep is racist, according to the media. The Atlantic posted a whole op-ed about this. I slept last night. Does that mean that I am a racist? Or if I post a picture of myself taking a nap with my dog, does that mean I am sharing racist views on the internet? I mean, who gets to define any of these things? But I digress. Who engaged in violent confrontations with riot police. He described this as a pivotal moment for a country that was ill-prepared to tackle the increasing hostility towards immigrants within its working class communities. So from what I can tell in this article, at least, to be racist is to say anything negative about immigration at all. Am I understanding that correctly? You are racist if you point out we can no longer afford to live in our own country because of mass migration. You are racist if you point out violent crime has absolutely skyrocketed in the city that I live in, probably because of massive unchecked migration, particularly illegal migration into my country, where drug cartels or terrorist groups or just really bad people are choosing to take advantage of our generosity and try to kill people, try to stab innocent little girls on their way to school. That's racist? The previous night's riots, driven by anti-immigration sentiments, were sparked by an Algerian man. So this article admitted it. The Associated Press didn't want to say who the country of origin for this stabber, but this article from TVP World does say his nationality. It was an Algerian man stabbing 3 people, 1 critically young children, and an adult caregiver outside of a school in central Dublin. Tensions had been running high after a member of the Roma community from Slovakia received a life sentence in a Dublin court Friday for brutally stabbing to death a 23-year-old female primary school teacher last year. Anybody seeing a pattern here? Maybe I'm just a horrible person for pointing that out. Maybe I'll be unable to enter the country of Ireland in the future for pointing that out. But this isn't just happening once. This isn't a one-off situation. Ireland has seen numerous anti-immigration protests throughout the last year following a dramatic influx of non-European immigrants into the country. On Thursday, hundreds of individuals spread out into nearby streets from the scene of the crime, leading to the burning of police cars, 3 buses, and a light rail train. Law enforcement reported the arrest of 34 people, most of whom were brought before Dublin courts on Friday to face charges related to riotous behavior, assault, and theft. And by the way, if you engaged in any of that behavior, that's not okay. We shouldn't be doing that. But it is interesting to me that the government is not asking, why is this happening? They're just leaning more and more into it. So again, here's what this publication has to say about this. The Prime Minister announced that the government would pass 2 significant pieces of legislation in the coming weeks. One would grant the police the authority to use facial recognition technology to identify individuals involved in the Thursday night riots as captured by surveillance cameras on various vehicles and shops. That's not horrifying at all. The other would provide law enforcement with new tools to prosecute individuals promoting hate speech online. Yikes. It's clear that anyone who may have doubted it, that our current laws addressing incitement to hatred are inadequate for the social media era. Again, who gets to define incitement to hatred? He emphasized the need for laws that enable authorities to take action against those responsible, particularly influential social media accounts disseminating racist messages. It's a good thing I've already traveled to Ireland, because I think this is going to be wildly unfairly ordained here in the nation of Ireland. Anybody want to take a stab at who's going to be criminally prosecuted in Ireland? It's probably not that difficult to find out. It's a good thing I've already been. St. Patrick's Day, 2019. Great day. And Dublin is a beautiful city. Ireland's a beautiful country. But gosh, this stuff is just insane to me. Of course, there are still sane people out there. Elon Musk has spoken out quite significantly about this, saying this is a massive attack on freedom of speech, which it is. Irish public television conducted a poll finding that only 19% of the Irish public were remotely in support of these new laws. So this is really just the Irish government, but it's all going to come down to whether or not they stand up and they fight and they say something about it. Oops, that's probably me inciting violence by saying you should fight for your country. Do I mean go and punch people in the face? No, but go out and say something about this. Post about it on social media. It's not yet a law to be critical of your own government, but it very, very quickly is going to become a law to be critical of your own government. Anybody watching in Ireland. The Irish police force have stated that their current approach to defining hate crimes relies on some test called the McPherson perception-based test. I've never heard of this, but I'm definitely going to go do some more research after the stream. Under this framework, if a victim or witness perceives that an incident was motivated by prejudice, it is categorized as such. The inmates are running the asylum. The inmates are running the asylum. So under existing Irish law, if someone says, I was offended and I believe you and your actions and your words were motivated by hate speech or racism or prejudice or discrimination, even if it wasn't, then I'm in the right, you're in the wrong. You deserve to be criminally prosecuted because of that. So if I post something on the internet that says, I love being a woman and I can't wait to be someone's mother and men cannot have babies, if somebody out there happens to read that post in Ireland and say that I meant that as a really mean, prejudiced, discriminatory view against trans people, then I'm in the wrong. Even if that wasn't in any way, shape, or form directed as a prejudiced post, it was just directed as a biologically accurate post on the internet. This is insane. And when are we going to start standing up and saying something about this? This is quite literally 1984, which is incredibly ironic to me, by the way, that the UK and Ireland is almost using 1984 as an instruction manual for how to build 2024. But this is the farthest reaching legal grab in a Western country, other than the UK government a few weeks ago saying that they were just going to make it illegal to have any platform continue to give an opportunity to post content to people who have been accused of a crime. If you guys remember, the UK government said that they were going to make Rumble illegal in the UK if they didn't demonetize Russell Brand after he had solely been accused of crimes against particular women. There was no arrest, there was no conviction, there was no jail time. There was no even actual prosecution of those allegations. It was just the allegation. And the government of the UK decided, well, if you're going to continue to give a platform to these people, we'll just make your whole platform illegal. Other than that, this new law proposed by Ireland's Prime Minister is the farthest reaching grab to destroy freedom of expression in the Western world that I've ever seen. And I think it's just the beginning. And in case you had any doubts on whether or not they actually wanted to start implementing this stuff sooner rather than later, they are already seeking to investigate anyone who remotely might have possession of hate speech on their digital devices, even if this isn't the law quite yet. First up on the chopping block, Conor McGregor. Daily Wire did some great reporting about this yesterday. This article came out yesterday. Conor McGregor, former UFC champion and a native of Ireland, is reportedly among the first people under official investigation from the Irish government for online hate speech. In the midst of all of these protests that were happening last week, he made a couple of different posts, I believe solely on Twitter. I didn't see them anywhere else, but this is one of the most famous people from Ireland on the face of the planet. He has about 60 million combined followers from just Instagram and Twitter. Posted to Twitter a few different times saying, Ireland, we are at war when it came to the mass migration policies that are slowly destroying the identity of Ireland as a country as we know it. He said, do not let any Irish property be taken over unannounced. Evaporate said property. It's a war. That's what he decided to say on social media. Ireland, we are at war. And because of that, the Irish government is investigating him for online hate speech and allegedly inciting violence against the Irish government. Irish Garda Commissioner Drew Harris labeled the Dublin riots as disgraceful scenes caused by a hooligan faction driven by far-right ideology. But the police commissioner's remarks were met with harsh criticism from Conor McGregor. He said innocent children ruthlessly stabbed by a mentally deranged non-national in Dublin, Ireland today. Couldn't have said it better myself. Our chief of police had this to say on the riots in the aftermath. Drew, not good enough. There is grave danger among us in Ireland that should never have been here in the first place, and there has been zero action done to support the public in any way, shape, or form with this frightening fact. Not good enough. Make change or make way. Ireland for the victory. God bless those attacked today, we pray. After his initial remarks, he even emphasized that he did not condone any stolen property, any destruction of property, or any attacks on first responders, and yet he is the one under investigation, not the stabbers, not people who continue to promote actual violent crime against Irish citizens, but Conor McGregor for posting about it on Twitter. He said, last night's scenes achieved nothing towards fixing the issues that we face. I do understand frustrations, however, and I do understand a move must be made to ensure the change we need is ushered in and fast. I am in the process of arranging. Believe me, I am way more tactical and I have backing. There will be change in Ireland. Mark my words. His comments echoed across the internet as reports swirled that the suspect was a foreign national, sparking the large anti-immigration protests to flood the streets of Dublin. McGregor's comments instantly made the mixed martial artist a leading voice in Ireland as the nation deals with an influx of immigrants, which reportedly has risen to its second highest level in recent months, and among the highest per capita in the European Union. Authorities have reportedly since launched an investigation into the mixed martial arts fighter as part of an inquiry into the dissemination of so-called online hate speech. So your favorite former UFC superstar and Irish national posting on the internet, I am not supportive of any violence or destruction of property or specifically attacking first responders. I see why people are so frustrated, and it's completely unacceptable that our government has taken zero action against violent crime that continues to happen over and over and over again from people who are not citizens of our country that we have allowed to come here, and it never should have happened in the first place. It's time for us to make a change in our government. That is now considered online hate speech and incitement of violence. In other words, if you are remotely critical of your own government, if you are remotely critical of the people in charge of the country that you live in, if you are remotely proud of the country that you come from and you don't want to see it destroyed from the inside out, you will be prosecuted. You are a criminal. You are disseminating online hate speech. You are the bad guy, not the people actually doing violence, not the people actually engaging in violent crime. You are the one encouraging and inciting violence for being remotely critical of your own government. This is horrifying. The investigation comes as Irish officials have reportedly started preparing to pass this radical legislation concerning the public speech law, which historically has lacked a consistent definition. Again, they want to specifically target individuals who post what they deem to be messages and images that stir up hatred and violence. But Who gets to determine that? Who gets to determine what violence is? Who gets to determine what hate speech is? Who gets to determine what racism is? Who gets to determine what prejudice is? Allegedly, in existing Irish law, the people who got offended by what you posted. The victim of whatever you had to say. There is quite literally no distinction between innocence and guilt in 2023 in the Western world. We've seen it in America with the Derek Chauvin case, who, by the way, was stabbed in federal prison in Arizona over the weekend. I think he's still in the hospital, where there was literally no overwhelming evidence that this person was responsible for the death of George Floyd, and there was overwhelming evidence to the contrary. We see it in Canada with all of the insane things going on there. We see it in the UK with these people being arrested for silently praying outside of abortion facilities because they're engaging in hate speech. We're seeing it in Ireland with wanting to target, arrest, and prosecute anyone who stirs up hatred or violence or even possesses hate speech on their phones. This is really insane, crazy stuff. But this is the future of what free speech in the digital age is going to look like if we don't stand up and say something now. Happy Mars says on Rumble, rules for thee and not for me. I couldn't have said it better myself. Are we going to let the people in power determine what our rights are moving forward into the 2020s? Are we going to accept a top-down approach where we serve the elite ruling class rather than the other way around? Are we going to allow our most basic civil liberties, like the right to speak freely, to engage in content freely in the digital age, to educate ourselves, to engage in independent journalism, be taken away by people who don't like what we have to say? I sure as hell hope not. And I better be careful because I sound like I'm inciting violence in saying this. But if you don't think that this is just the beginning, wake up. We're going to jump over to locals here in just a second for our post-stream Q&A. So I'm going to drop our link to do that. But before we jump into our post-stream Q&A, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our amazing friends over at Nori, who were today's sponsor of the stream and helped to make our stream possible. I am so excited to be working with Nori this fall and winter, delivering the highest quality and most accessible microbiome solutions on the market. You guys know that I've been in a very big journey to detox my entire life over the last several months, be it the skincare that I use or cleaning products or even the clothes that I wear. But a huge part of that is also what's happening inside of my body, and your gut microbiome is the door to everything else happening in your body when it comes to health. I love their women's specific products. They have a women's health probiotic and a digestive health supplement. They also have men's specific products. And my absolute favorite is their signature Stay Well, which is kind of like those emergency packets, helping to support your microbiome and your immune system all at once. If you guys get sick a lot or you travel a lot, especially around the holidays, Stay Well from Nori will absolutely help you stay healthy while you are on the go. Grab your first Nori product from that link that I just dropped in our chat, and you can use code Isabel20, ISABEL, and then 20 for a discount on your first order. You guys are the absolute best. As I just said, like always, we're going to jump over to our post-stream Q&A over on Locals that all of you guys are invited to, and we'd love to see as many of you there as possible. Before you go, don't forget to like this stream. That looks like a little thumbs up or a heart, depending on where you're watching, and smash that follow or subscribe button wherever you guys are watching to help us grow our communities one person at a time. I am so unbelievably grateful for all of you, and we'll see you back here for the stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. Bye.